Going to look at how we understand and draw inequalities onto number lines. So we're going to start with this one here. So we're going to look at x needs to be greater than 0. So let me just pull this down a bit more. So I know the numbers themselves on this number line might be a bit too small for you to see, okay, but you'll have to trust me that here is where the 0 is in the middle of the line, okay. Now we want x to be greater than 0, but not equal to 0, because it doesn't have the extra line that you can see on the next one down. So that means we need to draw an empty dot over the 0, and then we just add a great big long arrow this way to show that x has to be greater than that number rather than less than that number. Okay, so let's demonstrate the next one. So we want x needs to be less than or equal to 4. So 4 is over here. This time it can be equal to 4. So the dot that I'm going to do is going to be a filled in dot. So the difference between an empty dot and a filled in dot is whether or not it has that extra line underneath. Okay, so the filled in one has the extra, the empty one doesn't. So this is telling me that I want x to be less than or equal to 4. So this time my line is going to go in this direction. If you're doing it for real, use a ruler to do your lines, but okay. So that's the first two done. So now we have these different types of inequalities where actually they're limited at both ends. So we've got, if we look at this, neither of them have lines under them. So they're both going to be empty dots like this one. So we're going to put the first empty dot over where it says -4, which is over here, and the other one over where it says 1, which is here, and then we simply do a line that joins those two together. For this example, they've both got the lines underneath, so that means both of our dots are going to be the filled in ones. So the first dot's going to go over the 2, which is here. The second one's going to go over the 5, and then we just draw a line between them. So finally here I've got one which has got a bit of a mix, so empty dot over the -5 here, which is all the way over there, but a filled in dot going over the -1, and then we join those together. So that's how we take the inequalities and draw them on. We're now going to have a look at how we take them for when they're drawn and write them down as inequalities. So, as you can see, these inequalities have already been drawn there. So it's our job to actually work out what they are. Again, I know you're going to have to trust me a little bit on this because I can't make the numbers much bigger. So this one, just to make it a bit bigger here, starts here and has an arrow that goes in this direction. So it's an empty dot, so that means we don't have the extra line. And it's got to be less than. Okay, so we're going to start by writing x, and x has to be less than, so the small end is towards the x, and in this case the number that's here is 2. So the inequality for that first line there, sorry it's a bit wobbly, is x is less than 2. Now if we look at this next one here, it's a filled in dot and the arrow is going in this direction this time. So that means that our inequality is going to be x is greater than, so this time it's got the big end towards it, Because it's filled in, we're also going to put that extra line on it, and the number it's over here is -1. Okay, so here's the next one coming up. So this one, whoops, sorry, I shouldn't have filled that in. That was an empty dot. Sorry, I went a bit mad there. So both ends were empty like that end. Apologies. So this is one of those where we're going to have X in the middle. If anything, these ones can be easier to write down, because all we have to do is write the first number down, the X in the middle, and the second number here. And then the arrows must always point in this direction. So they both point in the same direction. And no extra lines, because they were both supposed to be empty dots there. So let's look at the next example here. Okay, so this time we have got a filled in dot and another filled in dot and the line in between there. Okay, so this dot is over -3. Put the X in the middle, and this end we've got 1, and remember the arrows always point this direction. This time we just need to pop on the extra lines because they're both filled in dots. So for the last example here, we've got an empty dot this end and a filled dot this end, and they're joined up in between. So we write this one down. We've got -2 here. Put the X in the middle, and we've got 3 on this side. The arrows always point this way, and this end needs the extra line because it's also equal to. So that's how we draw and interpret these inequalities when they're on these diagrams.